Okay, let's talk about innovation. It's the buzzword, right? Every company on the planet says they want it. They pour millions into fostering it, and we're all constantly told to think outside the box. But here's a wild thought. What if the very tools we use to encourage new ideas are actually working against us? Today, we're going to dive into the really surprising, kind of paradoxical world of workplace innovation to figure out what truly lights that fire.
So, first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. When researchers talk about this stuff, they have a specific name for it: innovative work behavior, or IWB for short. And it isn't just about having a random eureka moment. It's actually a pretty clear three-step process. You've got to generate the new idea, sure, but then you have to promote it, get people on board. And finally, you have to realize it, turn that spark into something real that actually makes a difference. So, the billion-dollar question is, how do we get more of this? The usual answers, throw some new tech at it, boost motivation, offer more support, they all sound right. But what's so fascinating is that when you look at the research, you find all these paradoxes where those exact same things can completely backfire.
All right, let's jump into our first paradox. And of course, it's about the one piece of tech that's on everybody's mind right now: artificial intelligence. Is it a simple boost to our creativity, or is it a whole lot more complicated than that?
I mean, the common thinking is pretty simple, isn't it? You give a smart, capable person a powerful AI tool, and boom, you unlock all this innovative potential. The AI handles the grunt work, crunches the data, helps connect dots you might have missed. It frees up your brain to be more creative. Sounds like a perfect recipe. But here's where that first paradox just smacks you in the face. The research shows that bringing AI into the workplace is a major stressor. And everything, hinges on how an employee sees that stress. For some, it's what they call challenge stress, this exciting chance to learn a new skill and level up. That mindset, it actually fuels innovation. But for others, it's hindrance stress, a direct threat to their job security, or just one more impossibly frustrating system they have to deal with. And that mindset, it slams the brakes on innovation hard. So what's the tiebreaker here? What makes one person see a challenge while another sees a threat? It's not the tech, it's the person. The single biggest factor is an employee's own ability to learn, how ready, willing, and able they are to adapt. If you're confident you can figure things out, you see AI as a partner. If you're not, you see it as a replacement. Okay, now for paradox number 2. This one builds on something we talk about all the time: motivation. We think we have a pretty good handle on what drives people to innovate, but the reality is way more delicate. We've all heard this a million times, right? True, game-changing innovation doesn't come from a bigger paycheck. It comes from passion. That's what we call intrinsic motivation. That genuine curiosity, the sheer enjoyment a person gets from the work itself. It's always been seen as the absolute purest fuel for creativity.
But this is where it gets tricky. Imagine you're a good manager. You see that passion in someone, and you want to encourage it, right? So you do the natural thing. You offer some public praise, some recognition for a job well done. You're trying to fan the flames. But does it actually work like you think it does? The data here is just wild. It shows this massive contradiction. On its own, praise actually works. It has a direct positive impact on innovation. But, and this is the kicker, when you give that same praise to someone who is already driven by that internal fire, that intrinsic motivation, it has a negative interaction. It actually starts to weaken the very passion you are trying to support. So here's the takeaway. Praise, when done wrong, can start to feel less like encouragement and more like control. An employee's focus can subtly shift from, "I'm doing this because I love the challenge," to, "I'm doing this to get that pat on the back." It creates this incredible tightrope for leaders to walk. How do you encourage people without accidentally snuffing out the very spark that makes them great? And that brings us to our final paradox, which zooms out from the individual to the whole organization. This one's about support. The resources, the time, the encouragement companies give. And you guessed it, more isn't always better. The logic here seems completely solid. If you want more new ideas, you gotta create a supportive environment. That means more funding for cool projects, giving people time to experiment, building a culture that celebrates trying new things. It just makes sense. But the research asks this really interesting question. Okay, we know support can help get people off the starting blocks, but what about your superstars, the people who are already knocking it out of the park with innovative ideas? Does piling on more resources and support make them even more innovative? And the results are,
Well, they're really surprising. For employees who aren't naturally that innovative, a high support environment is a game changer. It pulls them up to a moderate level of innovation. Fantastic. But now, look at the column for employees who are already highly innovative. Giving them more support does absolutely nothing. Their output stays exactly the same. They've hit a ceiling. What this suggests is that there's a saturation point. Your top innovators, they're already running on their own high-octane internal engine. For them, more corporate support doesn't add more fuel. In fact, it might just feel like more red tape, more bureaucracy getting in the way, and crowding out that intrinsic drive they already have. Okay, so we've walked through these three really interesting paradoxes around technology, motivation, and support. So what? What do we actually do with this? How does this change things in the real world? Let's boil it all down. If you're an individual, it's all about your mindset. You've got to frame new tech as a fun challenge, not a scary threat. And you have to fiercely protect that inner drive, what makes you passionate. For leaders, the big takeaway is nuance. You have to acknowledge that AI is stressful. You have to use praise in a way that feels empowering, not controlling. And maybe most important, you have to tailor your support. Don't just spray resources everywhere. Give them to the people who need that initial push to get their ideas off the ground. All of this really leads to one final big question you should ask yourself. Real innovation is a deeply human and, yeah, often paradoxical process. It's not about checking a box for an AI tool or a recognition program. It's about really understanding the messy, complicated stuff that truly drives people to create something new. So take a hard look around. Is your workplace actually designed to navigate these paradoxes, or is it just paying lip service to the idea of innovation?